So there was a time in the not too distant past when the word racism actually held a whole lot of weight, right? If you were to call somebody a racist, you could easily get that individual in their feelings, looking to defend themselves, or you might find yourself in a real situation. Whereas in this day and age, using the word racist basically means nothing, right? And you can thank the far left woke activists for this one because they use the word to nauseum. They use it about everything. They essentially use it as a shaming tactic. Anytime they heard somebody say something that they did not want to hear, damn it, you are a racist. And so we've gotten to a place where racism is essentially turned into a grift. As a matter of fact, I've come to realize that the people who are keeping quote unquote racism alive are two distinct groups of individuals. And perhaps there may be multiple groups within these groups. But there are the race hustlers and there are the white liberals. Now, let me tap into the race hustler real quick. The race hustler is usually known or seen as like the Al Sharptons of the world, the quote unquote Ibrahim X Kendis, otherwise known as like Henry Rogers. I'm pretty sure was his initial name, his slave name, of course, that he had to change to something that was fitting to a book like How to Be Anti-Racist. But you usually think of them. You think of the leaders of the BLM movement, right? These individuals who essentially profit monetarily off of the race hustle. But then there's also a class of race hustlers who is, how do I put this? They get an emotional and a sociological reward from their race hustling. So this might be a person who's not in the business of making money from racism, like again, an Al Sharpton or whatever it may be, but instead an individual who uses this as a means to get attention. And this is a very, very large group, right? So they will use these sort of activist talking points or this entire ideology as a means to get attention, to get sympathy, right? To signal to the rest of the world that they indeed are virtuous, i.e. virtue signaling. And this group also then translates over into the white liberal side. And the reason why I say white liberals is because there's a large enough group of them and they are a specific enough group to where I can just label them as such, right? I mean, even Brother Malcolm X back in the day warned us about the white liberal, right? This problem stems back all the way to LBJ and honestly before that. If you just go into the Democratic Party, this is the party of slavery, the party of Jim Crow, the party of the K, and the other K, okay? So when you look at this group, they are solely fixated not on money, but instead on the virtue signaling. It is a power dynamic for them. They're looking to position themselves within their own ecosystem because it's like the woke ideologues. It is like a cult. It is, in fact, a cult. Just it's a godless cult. Their God is attention, I sometimes say. But nevertheless, it's a cult. And within their cult, how do you get your ranking? So in order to get high on that hierarchy of wokeness, you must be the most oppressed. So if you are black, that used to kind of get you pretty high on that hierarchy. If you are black and gay, that gets you even higher. If you're black and trans, like you are, if you're black transformer, you are basically at the peak wokeness, like you are the peak of that hierarchy, and therefore you are seen as the most important. You're the most powerful really in that conversation. That's why your voice matters more. Your voice must be heard. You must be put into positions that you did not earn even before other people who didn't earn their positions. So it's like, again, before just a young black man like myself, I could have gotten, a good DI higher. Nowadays, I probably have to be, on the on that side of the spectrum, and maybe a few other things, maybe neurodivergent, ADHD thrown into there because that just somehow became a part of the mix. If you had some sort of mental illness, bipolar, something of that nature, these classifications would have me be a greater oppressed person, which would essentially bring me high on the hierarchy. And so when we get to the white liberal, these are actually some of the most coverted grifters when it comes to race. And I'm not saying that some of these people don't genuinely believe in this lunacy. A lot of them really do have deep-seated white guilt that they're trying to rid themselves of. And so they do it through this kind of, interplay with so-called minorities and trying to become an ally or whatever it is. But at a more, I guess, subconscious level, I would say all of them still have an aspect of them where they are looking for power. That's the grift, right? It's not just a grift again in the sense of this is a person who is just making some stuff up in order to get money, but instead this is a person who has adapted a certain ideology in order for them to get a sense of essentially acceptance, belonging, which is, to me, that's kind of a power grab. Maybe not in the traditional sense of like, I want to dominate you, like they do with DEI and things of that nature. Like, we'll pull you out and we want to be in, or third wave feminism, which is not, we just want to be equal to men, but we want to be better than men. We must trample men. We must take out the patriarchy, right? That's like a overt sort of power clash, or this kind of seeking out power, or I guess take power. But then there is the covert, just like the covert narcissist. They use pity, they use empathy, they use, people's emotions against them. And so these are people who position themselves as these allies. And when I found out that this was truly a grift on that side of things was, when I came out of the conservative closet as a young black man, it was essentially my place in life to remain devoted to the Democratic plantation. I could not deviate from the Democratic plantation. It was just not an option. Like, I mean, it's not that I physically could not, but that was it was the equivalent of leaving a cult such as the JW, Jehovah's Witness, right? Like, it was, if you left the group, you were no longer a part of your family. You're no longer accepted in your tribe, etc. And so when I essentially, I guess, unintentionally came out of there, November 4th, 2024, day before the election, let's just say I got to see the true colors of these so-called allies of black folk, because before then I wasn't really out there with my politics. I didn't go in the way I wanted to, which was honestly from fear. I was afraid to get canceled. I was afraid of what would happen, etc. I was living as a coward, really. And so I was making content, but it was around other subjects, but I was afraid to really go all the way there, right? I was speaking of truth, but it's like, are you actually getting to the core of these issues? As opposed to kind of sugarcoating things and hoping to, make everybody okay with how you're showing up. So, once that happened, I saw the backlash, the onslaught. Obviously, I lost 1,500 followers within the sequence of like 3 days from that day until, a day or two after the election on my Instagram. And it was a liberating experience for me. It really was. I felt freer than I had felt, I think, anytime that I remember in my life, maybe since like early childhood. I felt deeply expressed, and I was like, man, I took these shackles off of me. However, on the other side of that, I got to really see people's true colors. So I always knew that the black folk who were doing the race hustle, the grievance hustle, whatever it may be, those people right there, I knew how far they could take things. I knew how emotional they were, etc. But I was the most surprised by the white liberals. I was like, oh, y'all, this race thing is really, it's not actually about racism, because if it was about racism, me as a black man, I would not be a problem. As a matter of fact, you would be standing for my rights, right? My life matters to you. That's what you said with the flag in front of your suburban home, that my life matters. I'm a black man. My life matters as a black man. My life matters, right? But as soon as I came out of the conservative closet, my life no longer mattered. My life was all of a sudden a burden, a problem. And some would say some of the craziest things. Like, do you even, are you even black? Boom, boom, boom. Like things that I would expect to get on the other side of like, you're not black enough, etc. Things I've gotten into before, videos past. But there were some who essentially said, well, because I voted for Trump, that was part of this entire thing. Well, you're going to end up back in chains. You're going to end up back in slavery, etc. And I was like, that's pretty crazy coming from somebody who says they're anti-racist or, has built an entire identity around this thing. So you want me back in shackles. You want me back in chains because I don't agree with your ideology, or I won't fall into your fold, right? I won't be a part of your thing. I'm not willing to be subservient to you. I recently put out a video talking about like the white savior complex, which is really majoritively in the far left-leaning, quote-unquote, progressive activist side of things. Not to say that we don't come together for specific causes, but that's just a human cause. It's a human right. The civil rights movement was human rights, right? It just happened to be black folk. And all peoples of all ethnicities, et cetera, came together to say, no, this is an injustice. An injustice for one is an injustice for all. Absolutely. But then there is this metamorphosis into this weird thing of, again, it's about the ideology. It's about the dogma or the doctrine of this thing. It's about the religion of it more than it is about what they claim to actually be standing for or actually doing. That's why you'll find when, black folks are actually doing for themselves, you don't find those white liberals out there celebrating or saying, wow, this is progress for the community. No, because that takes away that power dynamic. They don't get to essentially latch onto you and, woe is you and, essentially to kind of praise themselves. Look at me. I am virtuoso. I am also virtuous. Look at what I am doing with these black people. It's really how do I put this? It's really insulting, actually. It's deeply insulting. Like, if I was a black liberal or leftist, Democrat, whatever the hell y'all want to call yourselves, if I was that at this point in my life, surrounded by those type of messages, I would feel insulted. It's like this entire DEI thing. If people were crying for me to say, oh my God, you're not going to get hired anymore because DEI's gone, I would feel insulted. How dare you? So you think that the only way I can get a position is through like a special policy? You don't think that I actually become excellent enough to where I cannot be ignored? That is problematic. And I don't think I'm the problem in that situation, right? Now, if I'm selling that grift, oh, woe was me, I can't do nothing, then, you and I both. But if you're looking at me as this poor, helpless black, whatever it is, and you need essentially the story of racism to continue to get your sense of belonging and your sense of significance to go in like Maslow's hierarchy, shame on you. Shame on you. Racism has become nothing more than a ploy for essentially individuals to grift, essentially individuals to benefit from, and not in obviously a truly beneficial way. Like, some will get money, some will get the attention, some will get the this, some will get the that, but when it's all said and done, you really get nothing for it. And I oftentimes say, like, okay, you can blame every problem in your life on racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, whatever, but what are you really getting for that? Like, what reward? Shout out to Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher. He says, at least get a reward for your pain. At least get something for it. You get nothing when you continuously go through life as this, self-proclaimed victim and woe is me. You get nothing. There is no gold at the end of that rainbow. There is only gold at the end of the rainbow of personal accountability, personal responsibility. There's only true power on the other side of accountability. Otherwise, you walk away with a, how do I put this? You walk away with a big fat donut, a damn zero, a nothingness. All you have is bitterness, resentment, anger, frustration. As you oftentimes see, the older these damn hippies get, the more frustrated. I know, there are hippies who are not far leftist, so I'm just throwing that out there as an epitaph. But, these so-called activists and progressives among us, they just get more resentful, more bitter, more angry, more frustrated, because that's what happens when you don't live a life when you know that you are genuinely in control. Simple.
I used to be afraid of the dark, place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. Got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night.
I know that
time is taking. A 365, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising. They see your light shine, that's